As Separatist forces advanced across the mid and outer rims in an attempt to undermine the Republic's control over the galaxy, Republic forces tried to set up defensive perimeters around key worlds. One of those worlds was the planet Quell, where a fleet of 3 Venator-class Star Destroyers were staged in an effort to stop an ongoing Separatist advance. This fleet was led by Aayla Secura's personal flagship, the Venator-class Star Destroyer, the Liberty. These Republic Venators prepared in orbit for the arrival of a large Separatist force, which consisted of 5 Munificent-class star frigates. When the Separatist forces, led by tactical droid TF-1726, arrived in orbit over Quell, they quickly advanced on the Republic defenders, deploying squadrons of starfighters in an effort to destroy or distract the Venators to allow their ships to open fire. The Republic quickly did the same, and soon a dogfight, consisting of both Vulture droids and V-19 Torrents, erupted in between the 2 battle fleets. However, in the chaos, Separatist forces were able to get close enough to open fire on Republic ships, in a battle situation not that dissimilar to the Battle of Bothawui. However, unlike the Battle of Bothawui, Republic forces weren't ready to respond. The end result was that while Republic Venators were able to destroy one of the Munificent-class frigates, the Munificents were able to force the Venators closer to the planet, closer than is considered safe. With the Venators taking heavy fire from the approaching Munificent-class frigates, they were forced to retreat further and further, and with the ships now significantly damaged, the 2 supporting Venators on either side of the Liberty were forced lower into the atmosphere than was considered safe, and both of them fell to the surface of Quell, leaving the Liberty to stand alone against a fleet of now 4 Munificent-class frigates. In an attempt to evade the advancing frigates, the Liberty sunk deeper into the atmosphere, where it could hopefully be able to evade the advancing Separatist forces. However, no such luck. The Munificent-class frigates now had what could essentially be considered the high ground, and they were able to deploy infantry. The Separatists began utilizing a modified variant of the B-2 battle droid, the B-2RP super battle droid, which was a rocket-propelled variant of the B-2 super battle droid. These were primarily used for boarding operations, and this is one of their first significant uses. They were deployed from the Munificent-class frigates down towards Aayla Secura's Venator, the Liberty, where they landed on top of the Liberty and immediately began cutting through the hull. At this time, the Liberty called for assistance, and Anakin Skywalker's Venator, the Resolute, was the first to respond, arriving on scene and quickly flanking Separatist forces. However, the single Venator-class Star Destroyer, the Resolute, would not have been sufficient to overtake the Separatist forces, and instead began focusing on assisting the crew of the Liberty in repelling boarders, deploying their infantry via a number of LAAT dropships, with the intention of moving them over to the Liberty to assist in repelling the boarders. However, the B-2RP battle droids that were on the hull of the Liberty quickly noticed the approaching dropships and shifted their attention to neutralizing the inbound Republic infantry, something they were able to do relatively effectively. Republic forces were still able to arrive on board the Liberty. However, while all this was going on, the fleet of Munificent-class star frigates had inched closer and closer to the wounded Liberty that was sitting lower and lower in the atmosphere. And at this point, they had entered close enough to begin firing their heavy turbo lasers. And as the bombardment of heavy turbo lasers began pummeling the Liberty, the ship's systems began to finally fail, forcing it to slip even lower into Quell's atmosphere. With the destruction of the Liberty seeming more and more imminent, the decision was made for the crew of the Liberty to evacuate onto a Consular-class cruiser, which had narrowly managed to dock on the ventral side of the Venator. As the vehicle started entering the atmosphere and now being pummeled by heavy turbolaser fire from the Separatist fleet, crews frantically tried to evacuate onto the Consular, and while several were able to make it, the Liberty started failing, and the end result was that the Consular had to be detached and began making its way to the waiting Resolute, which was now engaged with Separatist forces. However, there was a problem. Separatist Vulture droids, which had been deployed from the Separatist fleet, likely remnants of the Vulture droid squadrons that had participated in the battle in orbit, swooped down and began attacking the Consular-class cruiser, ultimately disabling its hyperdrive control systems and forcing the hyperdrive to activate. With the hyperdrive now beginning to activate, right as the ship was docking with the Resolute, there was an emergency detach sequence initiated, and the Consular-class cruiser was detached from the Venator-class Star Destroyer, the Resolute, and made a random jump into hyperspace, exiting the battle space. Seeing the Consular-class cruiser enter hyperspace and fully aware of the failure that had occurred on board the Consular-class cruiser, the Resolute quickly gave chase, leaving the battle space as well. With the destruction of the 3 Venators originally tasked with protecting Quell, the Liberty and his 2 fleetmates, and the retreat of the Resolute, the Separatists were able to claim victory in the Battle of Quell. Ultimately, while this wasn't a major battle that shifted the course of the war, it was a pretty good example of how the Republic was really not doing great in the early days of the conflict, facing larger Separatist numbers than they knew how to handle, and still learning the ways to handle their forces in a battlefield situation. Ultimately, the Battle of Quell is fairly similar to the Battle of Bothawi, which had occurred not that long before, and if you'd like to learn more about that, I'll leave a link in the upper right-hand corner to the battle analysis video on that. And if you have any other battles you'd like to see covered in future episodes of Battle Analysis and added to the archive, you can leave that down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.